Welcome back, folks, to day 139 of our chronological journey through the Bible. Today we'll be reading 2 Samuel chapters 19 through 21, where the rebellion ends, David returns to Jerusalem, and the long process of restoration begins. These chapters show us that while battles may end quickly, healing does not take place as quickly. David must navigate forgiveness, unresolved tensions, and the rebuilding of trust. Old wounds resurface, loyalties are tested, and leadership requires wisdom rather than force. Chronologically, this section marks a slow return to stability, but not without lingering consequences from earlier choices. Let's start with a prayer. Lord, guide us as we rebuild what has been broken. Give us wisdom, Lord, in our dealings, and humility and grace. Help us to be compassionate towards those who have probably hurt us or betrayed us. Give us the strength to be able to do that. And we commit all of these things into your hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Alright, let's start with 2 Samuel chapter 19. Then it was reported to Joab, the king is weeping and mourning over Absalom. And that day's victory was turned into mourning for all the people, because on that day they were told, the king is grieving over his son. So they returned to the city quietly that day, as people steal away in humiliation after fleeing a battle. But the king covered his face and cried out at the top of his voice, O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son. Then Joab went into the house and said to the king, Today you have disgraced all your servants who have saved your life, and the lives of your sons and daughters, of your wives, and of your concubines. You love those who hate you, and hate those who love you, for you have made it clear today that the commanders and soldiers mean nothing to you. I know today that if Absalom were alive and not all of us were dead, it would have pleased you. Now therefore get up, go out and speak comfort to your servants. For I swear by the Lord that if you do not go out, not a man will remain with you tonight. This will be worse for you than all the adversity that has befallen you from your youth until now. So the king got up and sat in the gate, and all the people were told, Behold, the king is sitting in the gate. So they all came before the king. Meanwhile the Israelites had fled, each man to his home, and all the people throughout the tribes of Israel were arguing, The king rescued us from the hand of our enemies, and delivered us from the hand of the Philistines. But now he has fled the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, the man we anointed over us, has died in battle. So why do you say nothing about restoring the king? Then King David sent this message to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Say to the elders of Judah, Why should you be the last to restore the king to his palace, since the talk of all Israel has reached the king at his quarters? You are my brothers, my own flesh and blood. So why should you be the last to restore the king? And say to Amasa, Aren't you my flesh and blood? May God punish me, and ever so severely, if from now on you are not the commander of my army in place of Joab. So he swayed the hearts of all the men of Judah, as though they were one man, and they sent word to the king, Return, you and all your servants. So the king returned, and when he arrived at the Jordan, the men of Judah came to Gilgal to meet him and escort him across the Jordan. Then Shimei son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David, along with 1,000 men of Benjamin, as well as Ziba the steward of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed down to the Jordan before the king, and crossed at the ford to carry over the king's household, and to do what was good in his sight. When Shimei son of Gera crossed the Jordan, he fell down before the king and said, My lord, do not hold me guilty, and do not remember your servant's wrongdoing on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king not take it to heart. For your servant knows that I have sinned. So here I am today as the first of all the house of Joseph, to come down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai son of Zeruiah said, Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? And David replied, Sons of Zeruiah, what have I to do with you, that you should be my adversaries today? Should any man be put to death in Israel today? Am I not indeed aware that today I am king over Israel? So the king said to Shimei, You shall not die. And the king swore an oath to him. Then Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, went down to meet the king. He had not cared for his feet, or trimmed his mustache, or washed his clothes from the day the king had left until the day he returned safely. And he came from Jerusalem to meet the king, who asked him, Mephibosheth, why did you not go with me? My lord the king, he replied, because I am lame. I said, I will have my donkey saddled, so that I may ride on it and go with the king. But my servant Ziba deceived me, and he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. Yet my lord the king is like the angel of God, so do what is good in your eyes. For all the house of my grandfather deserves death from my lord the king, yet you have set your servant among those who eat at your table. What further right then do I have to keep appealing to the king? The king replied, Why say any more? I hereby declare that you and Ziba are to divide the land. And Mephibosheth said to the king, Instead, since my lord the king has safely come to his own house, let Ziba take it all. Now Barzillai the Gileadite had come down from Rogelim to cross the Jordan with the king and send him on his way from there. Barzillai was quite old, 80 years of age, and since he was a very wealthy man, he had provided for the king while he stayed in Mahanaim. The king said to Barzillai, Cross over with me, and I will provide for you at my side in Jerusalem. But Barzillai replied, How many years of my life remain that I should go up to Jerusalem with the king? I am now 80 years old. Can I discern what is good and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats or drinks? Can I still hear the voice of singing men and women? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Your servant will go with the king only a short distance past the Jordan. Why should the king repay me with such a reward? Please let your servant return, that I may die in my own city near the tomb of my father and mother. But here is your servant Kimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king, and do for him what is good in your sight. The king replied, Kimham will cross over with me, and I will do for him what is good in your sight, and I will do for you whatever you desire of me. So all the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed over. The king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and Barzillai returned home. Then the king crossed over to Gilgal, and Kimham crossed over with him. All the troops of Judah and half the troops of Israel escorted the king. Soon all the men of Israel came to the king and asked, Why did our brothers, the men of Judah, take you away secretly and bring the king and his household across the Jordan, together with all of David's men? And all the men of Judah replied to the men of Israel, We did this because the king is our relative. Why does this anger you? Have we ever eaten at the king's expense or received anything for ourselves? We have 10 shares in the king, answered the men of Israel. So we have more claim to David than you. Why then do you despise us? Were we not the first to speak of restoring our king? But the men of Judah spoke more fiercely than the men of Israel. Chapter 20. Now a worthless man named Sheba son of Bichri, a Benjamite, happened to be there. And he blew the ram's horn and shouted, We have no share in David, no inheritance in Jesse's son. Every man to his tent, O Israel. So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from Jordan to Jerusalem. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace, and he placed them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but he no longer slept with them. They were confined until the day of their death, living as widows. Then the king said to Amasa, Summon the men of Judah to come to me within 3 days, and be here yourself. So Amasa went to summon Judah, but he took longer than the time allotted him. And David said to Abishai, Now Sheba the son of Bichri will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your lord's servants and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and elude us. So Joab's men, along with the Cherethites and Pelethites, and all the mighty men marched out of Jerusalem in pursuit of Sheba son of Bichri. And while they were at the great stone in Gibeon, Amasa joined them. Now Joab was dressed in military attire, with a dagger strapped to his belt, and as he stepped forward, he slipped the dagger from its sheath. Are you well, my brother? Joab asked Amasa, and with his right hand Joab grabbed Amasa by the beard to kiss him. Amasa was not on guard against the dagger in Joab's hand, and Joab stabbed him in the stomach and spilled out his intestines on the ground. And Joab did not need to strike him again, for Amasa was dead. Then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba son of Bichri. One of Joab's young men stood near Amasa and said, Whoever favors Joab, and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab. But Amasa wallowed in his blood in the middle of the road, And when the man saw that all the troops were stopping there, he dragged the body off the road into a field and threw a garment over it. As soon as Amasa's body was removed from the road, all the men went on with Joab to pursue Sheba son of Bichri. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth-maachah, and through the entire region of the Berites, who gathered together and followed him. And Joab's troops came and besieged Sheba and Abel Beth-maachah, and built a siege ramp against the outer rampart of the city. As all the troops with Joab were battering the wall to topple it, a wise woman called out from the city, "Listen, listen, please tell Joab to come here so that I may speak with him." When he had come near to her, the woman asked, "Are you Joab?" "I am," he replied. "Listen to the words of your servant," she said. "I am listening," he answered. Then the woman said, "Long ago they used to say, 'Seek counsel at Abel,' and that is how disputes were settled. I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel, but you are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the Lord's inheritance?" "Far be it," Joab declared. "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. But a man named Sheba son of Bichri from the hill country of Ephraim has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him alone, and I will depart from the city." "Look," the woman replied, "his head will be thrown to you over the wall." Then the woman went to all the people with her wise counsel, and they cut off the head of Sheba son of Bichri and threw it to Joab. So he blew the ram's horn, and his men dispersed from the city, each to his own home, and Joab returned to the king in Jerusalem. Now Joab was over the whole army of Israel. Benaiah son of Jehoiada was over the Kerethites and Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of the forced labor. Jehoshaphat son of Ahilud was the recorder, and Sheba was the scribe. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. In Ira the Jairite was David's priest. Chapter 21. During the reign of David there was a famine for 3 successive years, and David sought the face of the Lord. And the Lord said, "It is because of the blood shed by Saul and his family, because he killed the Gibeonites." At this David summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not Israelites, but a remnant of the Amorites. The Israelites had taken an oath concerning them, but in his zeal for Israel and Judah, Saul had sought to kill them. So David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How can I make amends, that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" The Gibeonites said to him, "We need no silver or gold from Saul or his house, nor should you put to death anyone in Israel for us. Whatever you ask I will do for you," he replied. And they answered the king, "As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us to exterminate us from existing within any border of Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be delivered to us, so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." "I will give them to you," said the king. Now the king spared Mephibosheth son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons whom Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had borne to Saul, as well as the 5 sons whom Merab, daughter of Saul, had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai the Meholathite, and he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So all 7 of them fell together. They were put to death in the first days of the harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest until the rain from heaven poured down on the bodies, she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. When David was told what Saul's concubine, Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung the bodies, after they had struck down Saul at Gilboa. So David had the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan brought from there, and they also gathered the bones of those who had been hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in Zelah in the land of Benjamin, in the tomb of Saul's father Kish. After they had done everything the king had commanded, God answered their prayers for the land. Once again the Philistines waged war against Israel, and David and his servants went down and fought against the Philistines, but David became exhausted. Then Ishbi-Benob, a descendant of Rapha, whose bronze spear weighed 300 shekels, and who was bearing a new sword, resolved to kill David. But Abishai son of Zeruiah came to his aid, struck the Philistine, and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, You must never again go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel may not be extinguished. Some time later at Gob there was another battle with the Philistines. At that time Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Saph, a descendant of Rapha. Once again there was a battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan son of Jair, the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was also a battle at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, with 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He too was descended from Rapha, and when he taunted Israel, Jonathan the son of David's brother Shimei killed him. So these 4 descendants of Rapha in Gath fell at the hands of David and his servants. So what we see here in these chapters is that reconciliation is complex. David shows mercy to those who opposed him, honors past loyalties, and seeks unity. Yet the nation still remains fragile. Leadership in this season requires discernment more than strength. The unresolved issues in these chapters reveal that forgiveness does not erase history, but it can redirect the future. God continues to work through imperfect leadership, shaping Israel towards stability and justice. And what we read today teaches us that restoration is often gradual. God is patient with us as we learn how to walk forward after failure and loss. And with that, folks, we'll sign off on today's reading. We'll see you again tomorrow for day 140. God bless.